Welcome. You're on The Fringe Show. I'm your host, Tatiana Zalan, and I go live every Friday at 2 p.m. Dubai time. The Fringe helps you to understand, to navigate rather the rapidly changing world and increase the odds of your success. Here we discuss technology, startups, entrepreneurs, and mental models of successful people so that you too can take advantage of the opportunities in the new digital world. In the last few shows, indeed, I talked about topics like decentralization, nation states, why pseudonymity is important. And also one of my last shows was about DAOs and DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, whether they are the institutions of the future. So that was very open and question mark. Today, I'm going to talk about a project called Dfinity. And this is one of the most probably ambitious and most complex project today in the blockchain space. So I wonder whether you think that that could be our future as well, this project and what they're doing with the so-called internet computer. What makes it also very special, it's a very well-funded project. It's funded by some of the best VCs in Silicon Valley, including A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz, they've got the crypto fund, and one of these crypto funds is run by Chris Dixon. So I'm drawing on his ideas as well in this show. Another interesting things about Dfinity is their tokenomics, and it's actually quite fascinating. But there is a very good show that's already been made by Coin Bureau. It's on YouTube. It's also, I think, is a podcast. So I really invite you to see what Coin Bureau has got to say about Dfinity. It's a little bit older YouTube video, and it's called Internet Computer, biggest launch of 2021 with a question mark. And it's a little bit old because it was made, and I think in May or something at the beginning of this year or mid-year. And since then there have been a number of developments. I can't improve on that. I can't improve on the tokenomics as explained by Coin Bureau. So I'll leave you a link there in the comment section so you can go and explore for yourself. Let me just remind you, it's a live show today, so make sure that Facebook can identify you. Please ask questions as we go along. But before we go any further, as usual, there is a disclaimer. I am not your financial advisor and I don't have any financial background. What I'm doing here is just information sharing for education purposes only. I have no connection with Dfinity. I'm in no way associated with it. I did consider them as a potential investment opportunity, but in the end, I decided to go against it. And one of the reasons was that their price at the time of the launch was very, very high, and I just didn't want to do it. But anyway, let's get started. What is Dfinity in their own words? And I'm just going to read out a few quotes from Dominic Williams. Dominic Williams, the founder of Dfinity, wrote a very large, very long article in Medium at the beginning of 2021, where he laid out what Dfinity is, what it does, why we need Dfinity, and also their roadmap for 20 years, which is kind of very visionary, very futuristic. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. So that's how Dominic Williams defines the internet computer. The internet computer, he says in this article, is the world's first blockchain that runs at web speed and can increase its capacity without bound to host any volume of smart contract computations and store any quantity of data. And the NNS, the network nervous system, is an open algorithmic governance system that controls the network. The NNS is hosted within the network itself and is part of the system of protocols that securely weaves together the compute capacity of the node machines to create the internet computer blockchain network, allowing the network to be autonomous and adaptive. So it's quite a big statement, and as we go through, we'll understand what Dfinity, and particularly the internet computer, the project, is all about. But firstly, let's go a little bit step a little bit back and just ask ourselves the questions: why do we need Dfinity? And this is because we have problems with centralized platforms. And these ideas are coming from partially from Dominic himself and Chris Dixon as well. All these big platforms that we are faced with today, and I talked about that already, Google and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, Airbnb, Uber, you name it, they command a great deal of power over the users, people like us, and third-party developers as well. They're aggregators of many things, aggregators of information flows and capital and data, and they have a lot of control over interactions between us, users, on the platform, and also our ability to exit and switch to other platforms. There are really substantial switching costs. They also control flows of capital and all relationships between participants and applications and users of these applications. They also control the rules of the game, and at any time, without any warning, and almost entirely on their own, at their own will, they can what we call rug pull, and they can and do that all the time. One of the recent examples, of course, is AWS, Amazon Web Services, that set to pilot conservative platform similar to Twitter. We don't want to provide you with cloud computing anymore, so that they rug pull really. So there is a big platform risk with all these big guys extracting rents. Once tech companies start their relationship with users and developers at the very beginning of the platform development, they're very nice to them, they want to attract them and so on. But once these platforms attract a critical mass of users and developers, then they can play a really dirty game. They can squeeze everyone, and this is what monopolies do. And this is really very harmful to the ecosystem, and that stifles innovation as well. And this is where crypto networks can make a difference. I prefer to call them crypto networks rather than blockchains, because it's more than just the technology, it's also the community of users and the incentives that are part of crypto networks. So crypto networks enable the emergence of quite a new breed of digital platforms that can be owned and governed by respective communities of users, of creators and developers. And so we can represent broad interests on these platforms, all sorts of stakeholders, and we ensure that they operate and evolve in a way that is neutral and fair and transparent and open. If you pause for a little bit and ask yourself a question, what is at the heart of all economic relationships, human cooperation, humans' relationships with each other? It's trust, right? And there's all of that, all the operation of crypto networks, of platforms, depends on trust. And the promise of crypto networks, unlike the centralized platforms, is that they minimize trust. They do it through code, and they get rid of all these intermediaries as trusted third parties. If they're so brilliant, so what's the stumbling block? Why don't we see crypto networks overtaking all these centralized platforms? Well, the reason for that for it to work, we need to some kind of a world computer that can simultaneously be decentralized and scalable. And at the moment, unfortunately, blockchains are stuck into what is very well known as blockchain trilemma. It's a trade-off between scalability, decentralization, and privacy. We'll get to that in a second. If you take Ethereum, for example, and they use proof of work and mining, what you see that crypto networks like Ethereum work by interconnecting the computational resources belonging to anyone who chooses to participate, say, as a miner. There is no such thing as single mine needs to be trusted. As long as the majority of miners can be trusted and are honest, then the computational resources and computational outputs on these platforms can be trusted as well. The problem that Ethereum and many other crypto networks are facing, that yes, they are decentralized, but they are not scalable, at least as yet. And this is one of the biggest challenges ahead for Ethereum, scalability, which they're, of course, working on. Plus, we also know that the speed of today's networks and today's blockchains is very low. It's no way near what we're expecting from centralized platforms like, for example, Visa or MasterCard. And a good question is, well, what makes scaling blockchains such a hard problem? Well, because the challenge with decentralized computation and decentralized systems more generally is really verification. Because trust in these systems is coming exclusively from two places. One is we're trusting the protocol, the code, and that code will mathematically and cryptographically enforce certain rules. And they also come from a second place, which is game theoretic incentives that make playing other users and miners playing by the rules and behaving honestly the best strategy for the entire network, for all the parties involved for that matter. And one of the popular solutions to this verification problem today is to require that every miner in the network to execute every computation. So we have a consensus about the state of the system. And I have a show in particular about how blockchain works and what consensus is, what types of consensus we have. And I can refer to one of those shows for more clarity. So if more than 50% of the miners on the network are honest and they're playing by the rules, then it is guaranteed that all these bad actors who want to corrupt the results will have their work rejected by the honest majority. And these bad actors will not be compensated either. One solution to this problem of trust has been vote and scalability at the same time, has been vote delegation. That's one solution. But we know that with votes, as in any political system, well, look around, these votes can be, corrupted in a way. So bribing and corruption of delegates can be a particular issue. And this is where Dfinity comes with its solution. Dfinity has got a very different approach to the scalability problem. So we're kind of in between two extremes. On the one hand, we have the inefficiency of full decentralization. And on the other hand, we have a more efficient but less robust or less trusted vote delegation. So these are two extremes, and this is what Dfinity does. It solves this problem. That was the insight that they had when they came up with their novel consensus mechanism. So at a simplified level, if you need the performance benefits of vote delegation, then the set of miners that execute a decentralized program should be very small. And this is what they decided to do, that instead of having or electing rather a static community of miners by human voting process, which may be corrupt, can be politicized and corrupt, well, why don't we randomly select a new committee for every block that's added to the blockchain? I think it's really a brilliant idea, and it gives us two benefits. The first benefit is the cost reduction and performance improvement, maximization, because it's only a small percentage of miners that need to establish this consensus. And the second benefit is that there is no human voting process. So it resolves the problem of voter manipulation or sometimes low voting number for all the voting participants. And that's one of Dfinity's definite breakthroughs. It's a brilliant novel consensus mechanism. For those of you who are a little bit more technical, it's called verifiable random function. And there's a highly technical paper that's written about it with all the mathematics and cryptography there. If you're so inclined, you can, of course, go and check it out. But let me probably walk you through some of the features of Dfinity and the Internet computer. The Internet computer is, in fact, a series of data centers that are spread all over the world. Each of these data centers will contain multiple nodes, and data centers are grouped together in what they called a subnet. Each subnet will use a proof of stake blockchain with this novel consensus mechanism which we've just mentioned. The native token of Dfinity, of the Internet computer rather, is what we call ICP. That's the ticker for the token. So a subset of nodes will be selected to produce blocks based on their staked ICPs. And the longer you stock your ICPs and the more ICPs you have as a stake, then obviously the more voting power you have. Subnets will host dApps, or decentralized applications running on this Internet computer. dApps hold what they call canisters. Canisters are just the equivalent of smart contracts for the Internet computer. And they can create automatically very different versions of themselves on other dApps, on other applications, to support additional users, should that be required when the network grows. And also they could be used by other developers who are building decentralized applications. They just recently made a rather significant announcement. They said that their smart contracts or canisters will be able to integrate with Ethereum and Bitcoin blockchains. And with the Bitcoin blockchain in particular, they will have smart contracts in 4 months. So all of a sudden, if that's possible or not, I'm not sure, but this is what they're saying. And because of these subnets consist of only a few nodes, the transactions and applications can be run at very high speed, comparable to the regular internet. And this is what Dominic Williams is mentioning in his Medium article. And it's an internet or first blockchain that runs at web speed. Right. And what's also very interesting about the Internet computer is that the users don't have to pay any fees for usage unless it requires transactions. Yes, for transactions, you will need to pay. And this is quite dissimilar to what we see in other blockchains when you do have to pay for all transactions. To be able to interact with the nodes, with applications and so on, you will need to have an internet identity. You need to provide your personal data to set up an account and to interact directly with the applications built on the internet computer. And that will generate immediately a wallet address that you will use as a user. So that's kind of quite a mouthful, and it's just really, I'm scratching the surface. There's a lot more than meets the eye. At the heart of all of that is what they call the network nervous system, or NNS. That's how Dominic Williams himself is talking about NNS and its significance. For the first time, internet services will be governed in a completely independent, decentralized manner. It is the technical solution to the systemic problems big tech has created with its monopoly over the internet, a public utility that should be completely open, bringing back the concept of the programmable web. The NNS is the catalyst for the open internet we were promised in the 90s, and it assures that the future of the internet remains open and free. So the NNS controls the nodes, the apps, the data centers, your identity, and so on. ICP, the token, will allow you to vote for proposals on this NNS. And in itself, the token has several roles. It is a governance token. You will use this token to pay for canister fees if you want to write dApps on the internet computer. And it also constitutes network rewards if you're running, for example, a data center. As I said, I won't go into the token supply and distribution and allocation, because there's an excellent review of that on YouTube, and I will post the link, as I said at the beginning of this show. What the project is also famous with, that they came up with this 20-road roadmap, which I mentioned already. So in the 5 years, they predict that entrepreneurs and developer teams will be choosing to build mass market open internet services using the internet computer rather than using traditional IT. In 10 years' time, we'll have more and more of the open internet, and the internet computer will predominate over big tech, over their close proprietary ecosystem. And they also predict a big future for DeFi, decentralized finance, which will overtake maybe, or at least catch up with the traditional banking system. In 20 years, they say that the open internet, the internet computer, will be significantly bigger than the big tech's close proprietary ecosystem, and therefore we will see decline in all big tech. So as a result of all of that, there will be a lot more innovation and collaboration and dynamism, and that will drive positive economic growth. So that's the vision, which is, again, very quite ambitious. Let me mention to you a little bit about their funding. I said it's one of the best funded projects in the space, at least up till now, right? And that information comes from Crunchbase. Crunchbase is an excellent resource if you want to do your research into various blockchains and various projects, because it lists whoever funded the project and the sum that they allocated to that project. So Dfinity, it would seem, had some kind of initial seed funding that was probably done internally, and the Ethereum community, I know, was quite interested in the project as well. Then they had an ICO in which they raised just about 4 million Swiss francs. They had 2 venture rounds in 2018, over 60 million rather, and over 100 million, quite significant sum of money. And overall, in 7 rounds, they have something like 170 million raised. What Dfinity also did, very interestingly, they conducted an airdrop in May 2018 that was roughly 35 million worth of Swiss francs worth of tokens to Dfinity community members to help them become early users. And that's really a very good move. This is how communities get bootstrapped, get started on blockchains. And this is what a number of projects have done, not just Dfinity. If you look at the team, the Dfinity's team, it's also very impressive. Dfinity is based in Palo Alto and also in Zurich. It's a foundation, and it's led by Dominic Williams, the founder, and very pretty much mission-driven and visionary founder. It has an impressive and large team. They're experts in all sorts of things, including distributed systems, and there are cryptographers and game theoretic economists, and they're very good at programming languages. And it's a very large team, which is quite unusual also for most of blockchain projects that have a small core team and a lot of outside contributors. I'm not too sure why they made this choice, but it's really working for them. And one of the guys, for example, there's a scientist called Tim Hanke, and he's very well known for creating what we call ASIC boot, and one of the few proven algorithmic optimizations for Bitcoin mining. So quite an impressive and large team. But I also need to mention 2 key concerns, my key concerns about the project. One is quite recent, and another one is not so recent. But the key concern to me is that they are really under having a lawsuit right now unfolding. What happened is that they launched publicly and openly on the stock exchanges and crypto stock exchanges in May. And there was a lot of hype around this project. They raised quite a bit of money. They became very quickly one of the top cryptocurrencies in the entire space. And then what happened, that the price crashed by 95% within the first month. So from the listing price of, I think it was something like $640, it fell to under $30. Generally speaking, it's not very unusual to see that in the crypto space, and projects get pumped and dumped all the time. What is unusual about this very project, it's very heavy institutionally funded, right? So why it happened, it's still a little bit of a mystery according to some crypto intelligence firms. But what we do know, allegedly, and I'm not saying that this happened, it's still a lawsuit, right? That they're still finding out the facts, but allegedly 2 billion worth of ICPs, their token, was transferred from probable insider address to cryptocurrency exchanges at the time of where we experienced the sharp price decrease. So it would suggest there was a probable dumping by people who were involved in the project. And according to the complaint, according to the class action, around 1/4 of all of the tokens were given to key investors and the team. They didn't seem to have a vesting period. So that was really a very big concern. It's still alleged, it's not proven, but it seems like Dfinity has not been very transparent about the allocation of its tokens. And another concern is that what the lawsuit filed in California alleges now is that they violated the Securities Act, which is a very kind of serious breach and serious violation. And it suggests that the tokens were offered to the public while they're still unregistered securities. So that's one concern. But this is not what concerns me most, because all these claims may just go away. Maybe that's not true. But my key concern is the network nervous system that sits at the top of everything. It guides the nodes, the subnets, the data centers, and decentralized applications. It looks to me, unless I'm interpreting it completely in the wrong way, it looks to me very centralized. It's centralized, it's run by Dfinity, we're giving up our personal information, and theoretically, this network nervous system could shut down all the voting on apps if they need to. I'm not suggesting it will happen, but theoretically, it may happen. So we have a lot of consolidation of data. And at the moment, we as users may not be happy with how our personal data are handled by all these big platforms, but I'm pretty sure that what Google has on us is very different from what Facebook has got on us, or from Instagram, or has got on us, or YouTube. So that these are different platforms with different user data. And all of a sudden, all these personal data will be consolidated in one place. So to me, that's a little bit concerning. Not a little bit, it's actually quite concerning. So let me just wrap up it in a few key points that I want to make. What do you think about Dfinity and the internet computer? Is this a great project? It's very ambitious, even though controversial at the same time. Do you think that Dfinity will fulfill the promise of a decentralized internet? Do you see the future, rather, Dfinity and the internet computer replacing the entire IT stack as we see it? The IT stack is worth trillions of dollars. It's a very, very big business. Is it going to replace this trillion-dollar IT services industries? If you're a technical person here listening to me, if you may be in IT infrastructure, IT architecture, well, what do you think about that? Can you see yourself investing in Dfinity? If you're an investor, please let me know. Let me see if there are any comments. Okay, maybe there will be some comments later on. Well, thank you so much for joining. I really enjoyed making this presentation about Dfinity. Certainly something quite unusual, and I was intrigued by this project for such a long time. And well, I'll see you again on next Friday at 2 p.m. Dubai time. But I'll let you go, but not before I'll let you, or rather, we'll listen to a little bit of jazz music. All right.